Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the RFA Client Hot Seat. I'm joined today by Ross Wilson. So we're going to jump into Ross's story, his time with us inside Ready for Anything, and hear about his journey and what he's been up to and also what his future plans are as well. I'm really looking forward to sitting down chatting to Ross because he's a very, very wise man, I will say that. So I'm going to expect some really good answers from him and some good insights as well today. So welcome to the podcast, Ross. How are we?
Feeling the pressure now. Wise man. God. I'm hearing quite a few people say that to me. Like, I'm kind of,
Must be that wee bit like in your
wee
beard.
beard.
Bit. Must be that. Got to be.
Yeah, but I'm good. I'm grand. Really pleased to be here.
Thank you very much for coming on. So you started working with us, I think it was August 2023.
Yep.
That's right, isn't it? Yeah, August
last year. Mm-hmm.
Take us back to that time. What was life like? What was going on in Ross's world back then?
So I think Christian had reached out to me. I'd actually met him at a networking event prior, and on the run up to the summer last year in August, I was actually in an all right spot. I think I'd been in probably in the best spot up until then I'd been in my life, mentally, physically, in a lot of different ways. I thought I was kind of winning. And I think he just came in to me at the right time because I'd been approached by quite a few different coaches, I think, reaching out and telling about their services and just wasn't interested. And I went on that call with Christian, not interested. I thought, oh God, here's another one, tick box. But I think he just came in at my approached me at a point when I was actually probably at a really low point last August. Now that I think about it, well, I know I was. I just was things that had happened to me that just rocked where I was emotionally. When you start to think about it takes me back there even just now thinking about it. And it was a really hard time, and I don't even normally take time off work, but I was just at a rock bottom. And I still didn't know what I wanted. Well, I thought all I wanted was someone to come into the gym. In terms of what I thought this program was and what I wanted at that time, I wanted someone to be in the gym just, I'd worked out for years. I didn't understand it. I just wanted someone to be over my shoulder and pushing me, tell me what I wanted, give me that bit of encouragement. And he's like, oh, this is an online program. I'm like, this isn't what I want. This is no use to me. So back in August last year, I was about to go to France on holiday, and I remember thinking, who signs up for this sort of thing when you go on holiday? You do that after the holiday, there's no point now. And he kind of said to me that it's probably the ideal time to do it as well. And I must admit, it did. I signed up on the call itself. He's that good, but it's been probably one of the best decisions that I've made, and I've really enjoyed it. But going away on holiday, having that a little bit more clarity, not even gorging out in the way that I would normally. I'm not even feeling pressure. It was almost like just over the course of a week doing 3 mini body workouts as well. But my headspace at that point wasn't the best. So RFA kind of came in at a nice time for me.
That's amazing. That was amazing to hear that as well. And one of the things you were saying, like, obviously you've trained for years, and me and Christian sometimes joke about this, that when you sent us your first progress pictures, and me and Christian were like, this guy's jacked. Like, he's in insane shape already. And I think as well, like, not that you weren't aware of it, but like, you were kind of downplaying like the position you were in. And sometimes as well, like when people come into Ready for Anything, they're not coming in from like a place of real pain. They're coming in from a place of things are maybe good, but they know there's more. They know there's more to give. They know that there's more to go and achieve as well. And I think you've certainly fell into that camp of like someone who is doing really well at what they do and has achieved a lot already, but they know that there's more to find when they go below the surface.
It's funny that you say that. I've never thought of myself when I joined the program as being jacked. I knew certain parts of my body I was kind of happy with, my arms and things, but I've never felt it in my core. That's where I've always struggled. And I think, people would always say to me, oh, you're in good shape anyway, you don't need to do that once upon a time. And I'm thinking, yeah, but when I take my clothes off, I don't feel good, or I can't hit the elements of my body that I would like to hit. And it's funny with you just saying that. I think generally something that's became more and more apparent to me is that the more you do and the more you achieve, you still don't feel like you're doing enough, and that you feel like you should be doing even beyond that. And it's something that's came, and I have been tuned into it, but it's become more and more apparent that we're never really satisfied with anything. And I feel like even if you've got big lofty ambitions and goals, and if you're on the brink of achieving certain things, I feel like mentally you've already, ticked it off and moved on to the next thing.
Yeah, 100% know what you mean. It's like when you get to it, it's almost like that, I'll be happy when I achieve this. But then you actually get there and you realise that it's not what you maybe thought it was. I remember having a thought when I'd done my first marathon, and I was thinking, I'm going to feel so good after this. And I did. But then I was like, okay, what's next? Like, I've done that now. What's next? I can't go back to the way I was beforehand. I've got to keep pushing forward now.
Yep.
I can't, like...
You set a new standard or precedent.
Yeah, definitely. I actually heard a quote this morning. It was really good. It was actually from Jimmy Carr on a podcast. I kind of wasn't expecting this from him, but like, he was saying that people don't want more time. They want more unique experiences. And I think that kind of ties into like what you were saying there about not being fully satisfied, is like, we go through wanting more time to actually do more stuff, but we're maybe not chasing the unique experiences that are actually going to give us that feeling of satisfactoriness. But yeah, it's quite an interesting thought as well to go down that kind of rabbit hole and look at that, because that's something that I think a lot of people experience, like that feeling of not being fully satisfied. And
I think, as you say, it's like that new car kind of syndrome, or just how we buy into commercialism. You think, I'll be happy when I've achieved this, when I've got this house, this car, this lifestyle. And when you achieve it, it's fleeting and you move on to something else. And this is where happiness, I think, at its core, is very much a choice. And so much of what, I think, because mentally and where we are today, now more than ever, a lot of our pain and anxiety is caused by spending too much time looking in the rear view mirror. And sometimes a lot of our worry is caused by looking too far in front, in terms of the future and projecting. And we don't spend nearly enough time, and I don't even think a lot of people know how to spend enough time being present in the moment. Because even if you go in someone's company, if you go out for a meal with someone or your friends, family, how much of your time are you actually being, you can be physically present in the room with them, yeah, but how much time are you mentally present? Where are you drifting off to? What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about what's going on later on that, that day, or what's happened earlier on? Are you being distracted by social media on your phone or a ping? There's just so much distractions, and I think we don't realise how much we are not able to sit still for any length of time.
100%. Definitely. That's so true. Like, you see it more and more often now. Like even if you're out in like a coffee shop or a restaurant, and if you look around the room, you'll see people like just sitting on their phone. And it's even worse if it's like a couple or there's like two people together and they're doing it. And like, I've been guilty of that, I'll admit that. But it just makes you think, like, what am I actually doing? Like, I'm meant to be sitting having a conversation with someone and actually being intimate with them as well. And I think that's one of the things we've actually lost. Like, that's what makes us so uniquely human as well, is like being able to have these insightful conversations where we open up to one another and we speak to one another. But now we're kind of almost like regressing a little bit, in the sense that we're maybe like being quite standoffish, in the sense that we're not being fully present. In terms of being fully present, what do you do to ensure that you're staying in that moment?
So for me, being present, it's still something I think I'm really very much working on. And I feel like sometimes I find myself in a position where I'm too busy. I think a lot of people are maybe in a conversation with someone, but you already know what you're going to say. So you're just waiting for your pause, and you're like, okay, thanks for you having your moment now. You've not really truly listened or heard what the other person said.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that I'm having to work on myself as a discipline, in terms of scaling it back and saying, am I hearing what that person's saying as well?
I'm just trying to get you with the mic a wee bit.
But in terms of being present in the moment, so there are a few things that I think that I do, and I quite enjoyed as well. I think social media is one thing, in terms of communication, as you said, with people, but it's not true communication. It's, I think we've kind of got blinded by how we interact with people nowadays, as to think that, if we're interacting via social media. I mean, I've got friends in that will be messaging me or leaving me voice notes when they're in a company of somebody else. And then when they're in my company, they're messaging that other person. I'm like, that just seems so messed up. I'm like, why not just be with that person there and then? But in terms of your question, what I do, I probably do quite a lot. And I still don't feel like I do enough. So in terms of being present, the very first thing I do in the morning when I wake up is I'll think out in my head, I'll just list off 10 random things that I'm grateful for. And it could be completely random. It could be something like an opportunity like coming here today. It could be like being able to have, drinking water, or actually just having the ability to get up and stretch on my legs. It can be the basics. And I think one of the things that I quite like, that philosophy of the more you're grateful, the more you'll attract things into your life to be grateful for. So you'll actually, it's like an energy, a vibration that, when you've got, you're actually you attract more of what you're already thankful for. And I do quite a lot of mind exercises and meditations as well. So I've started over the last couple of months doing meditation, which I thought was something I couldn't really do. But meditation is quite difficult. And I think, because you're having to concentrate, and this is where it comes, that our brains are going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And as much as sometimes we think that we've got so many thoughts going on, we can only think one thought at a time. Yeah, they might be coming at, lightning speed, one after the other, but we can only think about one thought at a time. And so I think sometimes that forcing yourself to be more present is one way in which you can actually get a lot of the answers. We're always looking for answers outside of us. But I think genuinely at the core, we know everything that we should be doing. That's your intuition, your gut, your subconscious, whatever you want to call it. It's within us all. And you only ever get that when you actually force yourself to stay still. And my mum would always joke to me, and it just kind of rings in my ears now. She would say to me recently, like, you just need to sit and look at a wall. And I'm like, aye, all right, mum. And I found myself the other week for the first time saying, I think that would be actually quite a challenge to do. As much as it sounds so simple, I think a lot of us would struggle to do that. Actually force ourselves not to be doing something, not to be, when you say you're not doing something, you kind of like distract yourself by going on the phone, read a book, watch the telly. But how often do you actually think, force yourself just to sit down and be still?
Yeah.
With your own thoughts, or even beyond that, not thinking, and just concentrate on one thing. And that's where like yoga and meditation comes in, which is something that I do. Doing a lot of mind power exercises in terms of my goals, manifestations and things, but that's taking me to the future. I think sometimes it's getting in that position where you're forcing yourself to go out and detach from technology, which I really enjoyed when we went on the Malaga retreat recently, because one of the things that I wanted to do was make sure that I'm not living vicariously, through other people or through social media. And hence why I even before going on the flight, didn't go on WhatsApp the full time, didn't go on Instagram, Facebook, and I loved it. It was like, if people were talking about things that were going on, I had to rely on other people telling me. I think I only went on to take a few pictures and listen to some music and do my Duolingo what I do in a day. But yeah.
You're totally right as well. Like, meditation is hard, and I think that's what puts a lot of people off, because they're not willing to experience that hardship through it and that feeling of being quite uncomfortable. Like, you'll know this, like when you sit down to meditate, you cross your legs, your back starts hurting, you start getting a pain in your knee. But see, like, I was listening to a thing about meditation, it was something I actually used to do quite a lot. I've not really done it as much in the last couple of years, but I went through a phase where I'd done it every day for about 18, 19 months straight, and it actually taught me a lot, like, in the sense that I probably should have done it longer, should I get going, but like, when you're actually sitting in that moment, you actually, even if you're feeling like a pain in your back or an ache or something, like, that's where you should put your focus, like, and focus on that, investigate how it's feeling and how your breath affects that. And then also in the sense that as well with meditation, that you're going to have, like, your mind's going to wander, but sometimes that's good in the sense that that's going to then teach you to bring it back to that center position. But then you also get thoughts that you're maybe uncomfortable with as well. And I think that's what puts a lot of people off, because they're not willing to actually sit and be with their own thoughts, because they're kind of scared almost of what they might find below the surface.
Yeah. And you just made me think as well, someone in my work that you just mentioned to me, and she's like, she's scared to be alone, and I thought, what, you can't even sit in your own company, you need to be with your partners, you need to go around your families. I'm like, you don't even have a relationship with yourself, and I think that's something that I've really built up over the last 12 to 18 months, is a better relationship with myself. And I have noticed that, I might go on a wee tangent here, with my diet, in terms of one thing that I've struggled so much with doing this group photo shoot that we're doing just now, that I've learned as well, is that when when you're working on less calories, you know, and you're tired or you've not got the energy there, you understand that on one basis that you're not going to be able to do things physically, or, you know, we talk about, you know, having the energy to do things. But I've noticed I've been less on guard with my thoughts, you know, so I think that your mind, and a lot of, you know, you've got like people call it the chimp, you know, or the great trickster, whatever, you know, we're not our minds, you know, to one degree, you know, we're really not, we're no more our minds than we are our hands or our feet. They're a part of us, but they're not really us, because effectively if it was, then our minds would, everything that we tell ourselves must be true. And our minds take us to really dark places sometimes, and we can self-sabotage, be really self-critical. And I've noticed that my self-talk over the last wee while has been taking me to a place where I'd was prior to all the work that I've done on myself. And the reason for that is just because I've not been fueling my body, and energy-wise, I've not had the same mental stamina to be on guard of those negative thoughts when they creep in. But going back to what you said in terms of, I think so many people are scared to be with their own thoughts. I've quite enjoyed it. Sometimes I do meditation and I try to do it more and more each day. It's part of my practice. Sometimes I feel like if I tick box and I'm doing it mechanically, other days it's a little bit more in depth. So it is a practice and a discipline. I think I'd be interested in why you gave it up. But I think sometimes when it focuses you to home in on where you feeling the tension in your body, where are you, and it's quite interesting to be an observer of your thoughts, not just let the thoughts happening, but you're almost like taking a step back and things. Yeah. You start by looking at the room, focusing on your breath throughout, and I can have one thought, and it's interesting to see how your mind just wanders to things that have fictitiously not even happened, and things as well in your life that have happened. Like I was even thinking this morning, part of my meditation was, I remember even seeing the confetti in Verona that when I lived there a few years ago, when we were at a big parade, and then that confetti took me back to like 2 years ago, which we had the poppers at my mum's 50th come out when I'd arranged this big surprise for it at our house, and then that took me to another place, and I was just like following this thread of where does my thoughts go. And it's quite interesting. You can create your own movie or your own, in your own mind, and it's a discipline to do, but it's quite interesting as well when you actually take that stand back. And it's almost like when people talk about when you pass away and you see your whole life in retrospect, you're not kind of doing that in that morbid way, but I do think you need to have an appreciation of immortality as well, to appreciate life. Because I think a lot of people, I know I'm going on a tangent here, but this is where my thoughts go to as well.
Keep going.
People, I even think about people in my family just now who they're scared of dying. And I'm thinking, you're probably scared of living too, because I don't really... I speak to you and I don't see you for I was with my family at the pizza night last night, and my papa I've not seen in over a month, and I could tell you the exact same conversations or things that will come out of his mouth, and it's the same with a lot of other people. I'm like, oh, what have you been up to? Nothing much. I'm like, should I wait 4 months and maybe have something to tell me, before I see you next, But yeah, I think there's a lot of people that could learn a lot by being more uncomfortable, and meditation is one of them. I find that generally we should become more comfortable being uncomfortable, and this is why this year I've incorporated a lot of new daily habits, such as having cold showers every day for like 30, 40 seconds, from the gym session, pushing that a little bit more, or even in other areas of my life where it's like talking to someone. I can talk to some people, but in certain situations I feel quite awkward, and I think it's good to look for opportunities to embrace the discomfort, because as you say, there's no growth in the comfort zone and no comfort in the growth zone. So
exactly, and it comes down to these little habits. I always think like the 1%ers, and you'll probably have heard me say this before, like nailing your world class basics, and that's always about like looking at like what's the most basic thing I can do, like to get me success and get me the results that I want. Like, is it getting up 10 minutes earlier so I can sit and just breathe, or is it getting up and going for a cold shower? What are those basics that I can just do on a daily basis that are going to put me like a little bit of discomfort, but also just progress me as well? Having a conversation with someone the other day, and they were actually talking about cold showers, and the guy was saying that he gets into his ice bath every morning, and he get asked why he does it, and he was like, because no matter what I do for the rest of the day, that'll have been the hardest thing I had to do that day, and I know that if I've done that, the rest of the day I'm going to be able to take it on, and I'm going to be feeling right up for it, be ready, and no challenge is going to be harder than getting into that ice bath in the morning.
It's all the wee micro wins, isn't it? You need to build up that stack of evidence, or even just prove to yourself that you're able to go through the grit. And I think so many of us like the idea of doing things or want to grow, but we don't really appreciate, or we want things to change in our life. But it's so true when you listen to like Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins and all the rest. If you want your life to change, you need to change.
Yeah.
So you can't keep on doing the same things that you've done every day, and that's going to involve growth, discomfort. And the more you do it something, the more it just becomes your new standard.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'll have people look at me, and I think a lot of things, I do cram quite a lot in the day, but some of the things that I do on a day-to-day basis, they're just a given. They're just a standard that I need to do, you know? And I think for me, and again, it goes back to what I initially said, and I still don't feel like I'm doing enough. You know, and I think this is where I need to be a little bit kinder to myself in terms of self-love. Is I kind of like that Vex King and I'll quote where, you know, self-love is that balance between appreciating what you've got and where you're at just now, but still wanting more as well. And it's getting that balance. And this is where I think gratitude is really a good thing that comes in. But yeah, it's all about the micro wins and what you can do on a day-to-day basis. That I think really count rather than any great accolade, you know, or accomplishment. And I think as well, what's really key, it's not about what other people see. And I think you talk about this and profess this quite a lot as well in RFA. It's building up that trust within yourself. And I think, you know, the worst or the things, or the worst thing that people could do is break the promises they make to themselves. And this is where sometimes I've realised that some of my values are quite conflicting, because I've got that element where I want to be balanced and flexible, but also sometimes I'll maybe take off a little bit more than what I can chew. And if I say to myself that I'm going to do something and I'm like, and I don't quite do it, then I'll beat myself up as well. And then I'm like, but that counteracts my balance and being flexible kind of like value. But I do genuinely think if you say you're going to do something, like, and it's the things that happen behind closed doors that nobody sees, you know, whether you're on a diet phase or where you have that extra bit of this, or whether you do that session the way you know, that other people see. It's not what they see that's important, it's what you see, because that builds up your belief in yourself and who you are as an individual. And I think that really shapes how you...
It goes back to what you were saying earlier on about, like, you were saying you were taking your top off in the mirror and looking at yourself and going, I'm not quite happy, like, with the way I look. Like, that's the same thing as well. Like, you know, like, people might see you on the outside like, Ross is looking in great shape. You know that when you're standing in front of the mirror, you're like, I'm not where I want to be. Is that a result of because I'm not doing what I want to be doing? And only you'll know if you're doing the thing that you said you were, basically doing what you said you were going to do.
I think there's also, it goes a little bit deeper than that with certain things. So I think, you know, we've got our ego, you know, that holds us back in so many different ways. And by ego, I mean in the sense of our personality, our traits that, you know, that have came from quite a very young age, you know, and our limiting beliefs that have came as a result of that. And so this is where I go back to saying that probably we think that there's good is never good enough. And I have kind of embraced as well over the last year or so, I'm being in RFA, that whole mentality of don't let perfect get in the way of being good with a lot of things. Still not quite there yet. And I think, to be honest, in life, you're never going to be quite there with anything. I think it's always a journey of evolving and improving. And at certain points, like just now, I feel like I'm at a stumbling block where sometimes it's a paralysis of too much information where I go back thinking, I don't even think I know anything anymore, you know? It's quite a weird one, but
I was giving you a wee pause there. It's like
I'm kind of getting lost in my own thoughts, and I'm like, yeah, this is what you get. You know, you feel like you know so much, or you've learnt so much, that you've consumed it, that then it goes back to like the more you know, the more you realise you don't know.
100%. I'd agree with that. Especially now, like we were talking about this earlier on, like the amount of information like that gets fed to you on a daily basis, and then there might be something that you hear and you go, that's really good, and then by the time you go to implement it, you've heard something else, and you're not doing it, and you're like, what was I doing again? And it just kind of like gives you that paralysis, as you said, and you're kind of almost like paralysis by analysis. Almost, there's so much that you can't actually decipher what is important and what you should actually be focusing on as well. One thing I was going to ask you that I really thought would be a good question for you: how do you deal with self-doubt?
So, as I said, this is probably, we're doing the photo shoot, as I said, this is I've probably, so there's a few things that I would do, but I think it's been more of a testing phase just now because of my energy levels, and I think it ties in with what you said a moment ago, which I was thinking about around one thing about me, my physique, if you take that as an example, I think self-doubt, you know, creeps into all areas of your life depending on what your limiting beliefs are from your past and your experience. So I do think generally, you know, to kind of have control of, you need to kind of be mindful and control of your thoughts a little bit more. You need to be an observer of your thoughts first and foremost.
What about for someone who's maybe not at that kind of realm of awareness yet?
Yeah.
They've maybe not reached that kind of point where they're starting to observe their thoughts. They're just experiencing a lot of self-doubt. It's maybe getting in the way of like them making progress.
Yeah, so we're our own worth critic, you know, and I think, you know, that'll always be there. And I think, you know, going back to what you were talking about, my body and my composition and where I'm at, it still doesn't feel good enough about any time. And I think the way I always think about it, but those thoughts are creeping in more and more as to how I used to think just now, just because of my energy levels and food wise and doing this body recomp and lesser eating window. I'm less on guard. And I think it goes back to just not feeling, you know, we all feel that element of imposter syndrome or not being worthy or being enough, you know, across different elements of our life creeps in. And we'll have, no doubt, everyone has their own baggage and their own experience as to why that's formulated as a belief, and you've just got a stack of evidence, and then it clouds your judgment because you look at that life in that way. But what I'll always think and draw myself back to a lot of times is, you know, you're only ever one thought away from a more positive outcome. You don't need to look at something or label it as a bad day or whatever. And events and everything that happens in life, I think everything is neutral. Every event that happens is neutral. It's the label that you give it. It's the lens in which you choose, and it's a choice which you choose to look at it. And it's habitual thinking that people are in the realm of. That's why if you have a certain belief about something, it's because you're in the habit of thinking of that in that way. However, it's like if someone's on their sick bed or whatever, you just seem to think naturally, oh, you can't think thoughts of being positive or being healthy because it would just seem like so unnatural. But I think one of the beauties and the things that I've learned is that you have the ability to put any thought of any kind into your mind at any time.
It's how you react to it, isn't it?
It's how you respond to it. Reaction and response are very different. So I think we're always working in reaction. Mainly in, for example, where we are just now, we're discussing and we're in this, you know, set up in this room, you know, in this physical world, you know, what with our five senses, and we can, you know, feel the seat, you know, the lights and that. But in another realm, you know, we're living a completely, you know, we're in a parallel universe whereby mentally up here, I mean, I'm talking to you, but you could be elsewhere. You could be thinking, okay, oh God, I need another coffee, or what am I having for dinner later on, you know? And those things are happening and running in parallel, you know, those two worlds. But what happens in this world is a lot of the time is triggered or influenced by what's going on out here. And so we're always in reaction. Whereas sometimes it's good to actually pause and actually, how do I want to respond to this? Or sometimes it's even a case of closing off to what's going on out here and thinking, this is what I do every day. It's like actually almost taking yourself mentally and actually making it a discipline of sitting down and saying, okay, what are my goals? Where do I want to be? Because your subconscious mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's happening and what you decide to do in your imagination. And I'm a big believer in that life, well, your life and what's happened to you. And it's only something that I've realised and come to appreciate over this last year to 18 months is that, you know, where you are or where I find myself and where everyone finds themselves, as much as a lot of people might not want to accept this is what I believe. Your life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, and it happens because of you. So what I mean by that is that everything that's happened to us in our life and where we find ourselves is a direct result of us and our thinking.
100%.
And I take that to probably a degree in terms of we understand what our results are and how that's happened as a direct correlation from our actions. And our actions happen as a result of how we're feeling about something, whether or not we want to do something. And that and our emotions and our feelings are really triggered by our thoughts. So it stands to reason that the most important thing, if we're, in terms of our results, is going to go right back to thoughts and how we're thinking about things, because our thoughts will influence our our feelings and our emotions. That triggers the action, and then you get the result, you know, and then the results, you know, you build up your evidence and that becomes your beliefs, and it goes round in that trajectory.
Would you say that your thoughts are then a direct correlation with your values as well?
It's
where the values fit into that cycle. that you described there?
Your values. So, it's an interesting one. So values, I think, are influenced by many sort of things. So probably the ecosystem which you find yourself in, you know, your cultural, you know, exposure, you know, I think as well, you know, we're influenced by so much of what we're exposed to in terms of your family circle and what influences or who you respect in an authority figure, you know, is, you know, because my values change, you know, like I think I would even just taking it down to simple things like nutrition, sleep, you know, my personal space, who and what I spend my time with and doing, that's kind of shifted for me quite a lot in the last year. And I think that's because you're influenced by likes of yourself, Christian, Ailey. I'm saying, you know, I've adopted even habits where I don't have my phone in the room at night. I appreciate my sleep. I won't always say yes to things in terms of social occasions with certain friends, or because I'll be mindful of how much energy and space I want to spend with them. I think, you know, our values are always being shifted by what we're exposed to, and it's always changing.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I was explaining, to me, values are like the root. And that's like what, obviously your values can change over time and stuff, and they should change over time. I think that's a healthy thing. But your values are always what dictates your beliefs, and that dictates your thoughts and dictates your actions. Because then if you're saying you've got this value, say, for example, it is to be, you value health and fitness or something, right? But your actions don't align with that. You're going out partying every weekend. I would always say your actions aren't aligned with that value. So you
aspirational
value
rather than a core. Yep.
And that's an important difference as well, like core and aspirational values, because so many people will say, I've got this value, but it's maybe not. And that was one of the ones, we done an exercise in this a few weeks ago. That was one of the ones that I said adventure. But I actually said, to be honest, this is actually an aspirational value, because I don't really do it as often as what I'd like or what I think I do it. And I said, I just need to start doing more of this. Like that's, if I want to make that a core value, I just need to do it more often.
Have you?
We've got something planned.
What have you got planned?
Me and Christian are actually going to go away for a wee weekend.
Camping?
That'd
be good.
The two of us.
Where are you going?
We're not entirely sure yet. We're thinking up north somewhere. Going to go up wild camp as well.
Yeah.
Get into our phones for the weekend and just enjoy being outdoors. And did you come along to the... No, I don't think you would have came on. I don't think you would have been in the programme yet, but we actually went up a couple of Monroes last year. Nice. And it was really nice just to like go out, walk, talk with each other. There was a good crowd of us, and when you're actually outside doing that sort of thing and just being in fresh air, having conversations away from life, nothing matters. You're just a person walking up a hill, and there's no status, there's no material, there's nothing there. It's just two people, and I think that's really good as well. It just allows your mind to like
be more present,
decompress from the stresses of everyday life, and just be who you are at your core as well.
And it's interesting because I think a lot of us don't take time to stop and know who and what we are, because it goes back to, I find that I struggle quite a lot when people ask me questions, and like in your Monday power hours, I'm like, oh, that's a deep question. I can't get through my thoughts to even wade through it to say, what do I actually think or believe about this? So yeah, I think when you were talking about values being aspirational and core, there's this idea, that, and I probably didn't appreciate, and I think until last year there was another exercise you did similar about values, trying to understand, okay, what do you value in a week? What makes you feel successful, or what makes you feel fulfilled? And I think because there's that many different areas of our life, because you can't just put all your eggs in one basket and think you're going to be fulfilled, because you're not. You'll still feel a lack. And I think when you look at I think there's 8 core areas between your relationships, between your family, friends, partner, whatever, finances, business, your spiritual well-being, and I mean that not in a religious sense, but spirit, your mental, your physical. There's all these different areas of your life, and if you were to kind of home in and just put all your energy and time in one space, you would be doing that probably because you maybe feel a bit more confident in there, or what you're doing, whereas there'll be another area of your life you're neglecting and you won't feel whole. And I find that a lot of things I do in my life nowadays, I'll plan my week out and I'll make sure from little things, you know, and I'll make sure holistically I know the things I need to get in a week that make me feel me or make me feel fulfilled, you know, and enjoyment. And yeah, there'll be more. It's always a juggle in actual life, isn't it? You're going to spend more time in one camp than you are another. But it's always about being aligned with that and have things where you know you're on balance. And I think sometimes this is where I can be a little bit more self-critical because I'm maybe not making the traction or the space or the progress in one area of my life that I would like to happen in the time. But when I probably look and compare myself to others maybe be doing something at a quicker rate. But when I look at, I wouldn't want to trade shoes with them because I look at other areas of their life where I'm thinking, no, they're not thriving there. Yeah. You know, I know at least with my life, you know, I take a lot of time in a week where I invest in, you know, doing the things that I enjoy. I appreciate my food. I love my food. You know, so as much as I'm like on the journey of being
hungry as well. Don't want to see that.
But I really enjoy, you know, I've got a sweet tooth and you know, if I was going through this body transformation, for example, and not being able to eat out or enjoy the good things, I would begrudge it. I wouldn't like the experience, you know. So it's like making time for that. I would feel a bit lacking if I didn't, you know, spend some time or touch base with friends and family or people that I really thrive or really feel good about myself and, you know, in certain environments or having good conversations or, you know, spend time working on myself mentally. I think the biggest relationship that you can work on is the one with yourself, which so many people don't do. And I've had to do a lot of work on me to get, just like you say, with people saying that I'm wise or that, it's been quite a nice compliment. A few people have said this to me a few times, like, it's been nice to spend time with you, your energy and all that. And I honestly would dictate or, you know, label myself as the negative Nancy a few years ago, you know, my group, my friends. And I feel like probably I've came on in leaps and bounds where I'm a bit more mentally strong. Not always, you know, I'm not perfect, you know, I'm not still trying to navigate through. And I think this is where sometimes I feel like there's different versions of me that pop up in a day where I feel like I'm being hypocritical, you know, because I don't really think, unless you're able to follow, everyone can give advice. Everyone's got an opinion, a view on something. But unless you're actually doing it and allowing people to, you know, be that example, you know, where people can actually see things that are happening or see the practices and a lot of things that they don't see, you know, as well, and still follow through with them. And this is where I said that the things that happen behind closed doors are more important than what actually people are seeing. But I think we just need to spend more time developing that relationship with ourselves, getting clear on what makes us happy, our values, and then starting to make sure that we live our life and our actions aligned to that.
I think as well, because you went through that period of, as you said earlier on, being at rock bottom and going through those hardships, that's where you probably made a lot of progress, in the sense that you were almost maybe backed into the corner of like having to do the work and having to actually change something as well. And it makes you stronger coming out the other side of those situations. Yeah.
I think for quite a lot of my life, to be honest, I've been really critical of myself and I've not liked myself for quite a long time. You know, there's been periods in my life for a long stretch where I thought, you know, my life wouldn't be worth living and the life of those around me would be probably better without me. And it's quite upsetting to think that, you know, but that's where I've been mentally in a lot of places in my life. And even I think, you know, even going on a superficial, shallow basis, you know, I didn't like, you know, growing up in high school. I came out of high school where I came from a real being popular and moved to a school where I didn't know anyone. And then that, you know, sense of being bullied, rejected. I didn't like my eye colour at one point for a year. I wore fake contacts. I've only, you know, recently in the last year or two stopped dyeing my hair and my beard, you know. I think becoming more confident in your skin as well is one thing. But mentally, so many people, going back to what we said about earlier, do not like themselves. And we put so much emphasis and pressure on ourselves to be in a certain way to conform to what other people might think of us and we're trying to please the majority of people that don't even like themselves. And I think, you know, it's like that Abraham Lincoln quote where you can please some of the people all of the time. You can please all of the people some of the time, but you can't please all of the people all of the time.
100%.
And I think at its core, you should always just go back to yourself. What would I love? And just think of it and be a bit selfish. I think we need to be more selfish. What would you enjoy? And this is where I think I'm more precious over what I spend my time doing. I've had to redefine some of the relationships I have with people in my life and how much time I'm willing to give them. And that's been hard for them and me because I'm growing, but I need to appreciate the impact that's having on them. But I need to spend more time building that relationship with me, you know, and making sure that I love myself and that I appreciate who I am. And I probably think, problems and challenges, that's part of life, and we should embrace them, it's not something to shy away from. That's what helps you and that's what grows, and that's part and parcel to, being successful. And I think one of the key things, going back to what we said initially, is, happiness is not a pursuit or a destination. It is a choice, and it's something that you should look for day by day, week by week, to incorporate, what aligns with your values and what you enjoy. And one of the things that I quite liked when I mentioned to you earlier, when I went to see Stephen Bartlett doing his UK tour the other month, was he's obviously infatuated by immortality and things just now in his own death. And I think that only by doing that do you get an appreciation for life, and appreciate from what you've got. And you should be able to look at the simple things, because so many of us are always comparing upwards rather than downwards. And I think that's what steals a lot of our joy. Whereas how many times do you wake up in a morning, how thankful are you for being able to flick on a light switch or turn on a tap and get drinking water? You don't, you take it for granted. Mm-hmm. If you actually spent more time in your life, each day being thankful for small things, or appreciating small moments, that's where the happiness comes in, is being able to kind of like, I'm looking forward to today after this, going and see my wee nephew and getting his wee hand, hold my finger and walk me around the house, in a Easter egg hunt or something, and see my puppies, and then catching up with my friends, and then like even this morning being able to have a wee moment with my wee espresso and that. It's taking, joy in the small moments bit by bit throughout your day. That's where people, I think, it's getting that balance between enjoying the present and being more present. So going back to your earlier question, what do you do to be more present? It's like enjoying the moment there and then. And that's not just moments with other people, that's moments with yourself as well. Yeah.
Love that. What's been your biggest achievement in the time that you've been inside Ready for Anything?
Oh, biggest achievement. Oh, God, that way, I can't really say a big achievement is, as I said, going back to what I initially said, that big accolade, in terms of, it's more about the small incremental habits that I've been able to build up to make new standards, I suppose. Because when I first joined, movement and steps would never have been something I would have done. And I'm quite transactional, probably quite a lot of things. I like to, so probably I don't embrace things fully the way which I should, but it just became a standard. So I think, it's opened up so many doors in terms of the network, the communications, the friendship groups that I've been able to get linked in with, and the experiences like going away to Malaga, taking part in this photo shoot, and kind of helped me get to a level of physical transformation that I've not experienced in my life. Yeah, that's all really good. But again, and I do appreciate it, and I do probably not appreciate it as much as what I think I should and could. And so that's... And again, I quite like that element where I'm always learning more. I quite like that element from RFA, that there's always new insights, new perspectives, into things that help me. And it's helped me having the likes of yourself, Josh and Christian and Ailey, as a sounding board almost, with a lot of things that just give me perspective, or even just probably having to listen to a lot of my voice messages on, like, why is it only going up to 2 times the speed I need quicker?
What's your record for voice notes?
I'm not going to say it. Too long. But even then, some of them aren't even intended for you. So I'm like, by the way, you don't even need to listen to this, because I've kind of answered my own. But I just get lost.
But that's sometimes. Good that you've got that freedom to come into your chat with us and just speak your mind.
I think,
which is obviously what we want to encourage, but obviously you feeling safe enough to go in there and just say it as it is. And I think that's what holds a lot of people back as well, in the sense that they're kind of not standoffish, but obviously we built trust with you over time as well, and coming into that, but being able to come into that and just go, this is how I'm feeling, this is what's going on, and this is how things are at the minute.
Yeah, and I don't get me wrong, I think there's certain things, that I'll hold back on as well, believe it or not. And because I know for a large part of my life, I've been one of those people, that invisible person, and even the elements of my life still I do that. I'm kind of like shy into myself. And it's just from habitual thinking and habitual, behaviour, and it's just reconditioning, 34 years worth of, being a certain way. So I think in terms of coming into RFA, it's been around like-minded people, that have helped me evolve in my thinking, helped me expand, in terms of my physical transformation, and develop new habits, and just, become a better version of me.
Love that. What was your biggest takeaway from the retreat in Malaga? Or lesson? What was the kind of thing that coming back from it really thought, I'm going to implement this? Or
there was no kind of like epiphany moment, which was for me, I was kind of beating myself up saying, why am I people are going away with all these kind of like insights and all, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, where's mine? And I think Christian has said to me, I've probably embarked upon a journey of self-development in so many different ways, even out with RFA, that kind of, I think, they say that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think, this is where even, the people you spend time with, but what you listen to, what you consume, and this is why I listen to a lot of things like in podcasts and that nowadays, or even just read the same content over and over again, just until, I'll listen to Denzel, part of my daily routine is I'll listen to a Denzel Washington speech that he does to graduates about, that ability to, everyone's got that ability to succeed, but it's about failure and being prepared to take risks, so there's things that I probably take on day by day, which, gives me different insights. So I did certainly, as I said to you initially, when I was away in Malaga, appreciate that time out just to be a little bit more calm and not have to feel the need to put my whole elements of my life on social media and interact. And I'm not going to say I've completely nailed it, but I'm better.
Did you enjoy slowing down for that week?
It was quite a nice week, we were slow, we did slow the pace down, I think, because probably what I do and what I accomplish in a day, I don't think it's quite a lot of time. Other people look at me saying, how the hell have you done that? And I'm like, no,
just do that, second nature.
But I genuinely don't think, especially in business and work, there's certain things I'm wanting to move a lot quicker on, and sometimes I just, procrastinate. We all procrastinate, and put things off that are less enjoyable. But there was not a light bulb moment. It did give me that opportunity to step back from social media and have less of a constraint on actually going back to what I said I do, going back to what I said initially about looking for validation through others. It's actually trying to value myself. Like if I put a story or a post and something up, it's not like 5 minutes later or throughout the day having to go back and see who's even liked it or how many posts. It's something that we've kind of, I don't know if you do that, or if that was just something that I did, but I think a lot of people kind of put their own value on based upon the interaction we get from others and look for praise, etc. Where it should really be something about you look for.
The external validation gives you a much bigger hit of dopamine than what it does from yourself. But then you ride that dopamine, it's like a wave. So obviously when you post something, you get likes and you get the dopamine hit and you're like, yes, got the likes. And that's like the first hour or so. Then over time it drops down, you're not getting any dopamine hit. Whereas when you're seeking your own internal validation from doing stuff, almost like it lasts longer as well. The other day, I went for a run in the morning and I was like, I'm going to go for a cold dip afterwards. Right. And I fought myself to I might not do it. It's starting to rain, I just do not do it. I was like, no, do it. You'll feel so good for it. And it's having that conversation with yourself and paying yourself forward as well. Knowing that later on in the day, I'll be so grateful for going for that cold dip because I challenged myself afterwards, rather than just saying, I'll just leave it. And then, as you said earlier on, it'd be breaking trust with myself. Because I said to Amy beforehand, I'm going for a run in the morning and I'm going to go for a cold dip. She's like, okay.
But she would know if you didn't do that.
She's like,
you would know if you didn't do it.
I'd know going to my bed that night, I hadn't done what I said I was going to do, basically. And when you're in that mindset of laying things down, and I'm a firm believer in writing things down, what you're going to do, pen and paper, write down,
handwriting,
and I have a system. I have a system where I cross it off if I've done it, or if I've moved it to the next day. If I then have to score through saying that, I've not done that, I'm I don't want to do that. I don't ever want to see that unless something's had to be cancelled for whatever reason. But I don't like scoring through it. I want to cross it off and be I done that. I didn't do it for anyone else. I done it for me.
I do like that. I'm one of these people that I've got lists. I have my day, I have my week planned out on a board, but then the day before I'll always plan out my day, and I'll truncate it up between 5 a.m, sometimes earlier if I'm up, and 9 o'clock at night, and I'll try and maybe make sure that I'm unwinding before that time. But yeah, I'll have it broken down, time box. But I must admit, I'm not even rigid with it. I mean, I'll do it now, and I've noticed over the last couple of weeks, I'm not even following it, but I'm doing it. But I get most of it done, and it's interesting. I think they do say that if you kind of roll something off your list maybe more than 2 or 3 times, that there's 90% plus chance of you ever actually doing it. And I think going back to your point about dopamine, I think one thing that I found quite useful recently is that it's almost like having that internal dialogue. If there's 2 tasks to be done, and one of them is the one they want to do with more pleasurable, and the one that's something that's going to take you further, usually the thing that's going to take you further in your journey, or progress something and a goal in whatever area of your life it is, that'll be the thing that you can't be bothered doing, but it will help you. So I think sometimes
as well,
doing that first and having that delayed gratification of saying, or giving yourself a little treat, whether that's, being able to go on social media, or being able to go and have that snack, or watch that TV program after you've done, you're almost like negotiating with your own mind, saying, by the way, okay, I know we don't want to do this just now, but if we do it, then we can do this, as a treat. And you kind of like, okay, I'll work with you on that one, let's do it. It's like, I think just in this day and age, I don't know if we touched on that earlier when we were talking about everything's just so accessible. The delayed gratification isn't there. We can get whatever program that we want instantaneously. We don't need to wait for adverts these days. We can get things delivered to us the same day. We've become very lazy, very complacent, very demanding, upon everyone else except ourselves. Mm-hmm. We put less pressure on our demands of ourselves to do things that are going to propel or take us to where we want to be. And that's because it makes us uncomfortable. And obviously, as I said, if you want to achieve something great or new, you need to become uncomfortable. You need to do something you've not done before, and that is uncomfortable, and we don't like it. So hence why we do what we do, and a lot of us don't get what we want because we can't stick at it. And it's one thing getting started and, having the momentum, but it's a discipline that you need to incorporate that will carry you through, And as I said, I think like with anything, then you'll just find there's a new level with a new demon and a new comfort zone eventually, you just need to embrace that time and time again.
Yeah, it's not like things become easier.
No,
you just
become better.
Mm-hmm. And as you go up the levels, the difficulties increases as well. But you're still becoming better as you go through it. I think there's that misconception that things are going to get easier.
Yeah.
But you've kind of got to talk yourself out of that and realise that no, it's not going to be easier. It's like you just become better. And the kind of good example, or kind of simple example, is like if you think of like running, someone running, like, okay, you say you're going to do a 10k in an hour, right? You do it, and then you go, okay, now we need to go, I want to go down and do 55 minutes.
Yep.
It's going to be harder, but I'm better now. So it's about reframing it, I think, a lot of the time. And I think that's one of the things that I like doing, and I encourage a lot of you guys to do, is like look at things from like a different perspective, or like flip it, take the inverse of it, and what does that look like as well, rather than looking at it like at face value. I was reading something the other day that people who actually spend more time with the problem but look at it from different ways actually get better outcomes from that, because rather than just looking at a one-dimensional space, if they kind of take that step back and look at all the different aspects of the problem, they're going to actually see the different outcomes that you can achieve from it.
Yeah. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I think generally, if you can't change the situation, change your perception of it is the kind of key, because that's only where your own personal power lies in terms of how you interpret something. And it goes back to that whole view of not being in constant reaction mode. You'll always think thoughts, and you'll either be in reaction to what's happening around about you, or you can choose to respond. And I think there will always be a positive and negative, in every situation. It's just depending on where you decide to put your emphasis. And a lot of people, and I mean that for every situation, and you would probably not think it, and you can't join the dots up sometimes looking forward. You can only do that in retrospect, looking backwards, as we know. Because some people, I even remember speaking to one of my friends the other day who had a parking ticket, and she was able to go and pay all that. And I'm like, you never know, there could be a positive in it. No, just a negative. I'm like, okay. But that way I'm saying, if it's only be a negative, you don't learn anything from it, And, I just have this whole idea that, there's no such thing as good luck or bad luck. It's just like, let things flow. And ultimately, you don't really know what one event, how that can lead to the next. And I think a lot of people sometimes, like even, an illness is almost triggered as being a bad thing, but sometimes people can get great realizations from having a great illness, or something like losing your jobs. It might be something that some people think is, that's catastrophic. That can't possibly be a good thing. But then that, in retrospect, that might have led you to take a different course of action to do something that's more aligned to your, purpose. I mean, you feel more fulfilled, but you would never have got unless that opportunity came. So I genuinely think that not everything that happens to us that is pleasurable is good, and not everything that happens to us that is, uncomfortable or unsatisfying is bad. Where a lot of good things can come from that, but it's dependent on where you decide to put your emphasis on your thoughts. And so generally, I do believe that if you build up within yourself an element of looking for the positives in things, that'll become your energy signature, that'll become your vibration, and you'll attract more people and circumstances, and even in thoughts and ideas that'll take you to where you need to be. And that becomes a discipline again in itself that you need to adopt in terms of being more in control of your thoughts and not let your thoughts run away yourself and be influenced constantly by what's happening around about you.
Yeah, that's exactly what you said earlier on. It's your response to these situations rather than looking at that part, like the example of the parking ticket, like looking at it as a negative thing. Like it's a neutral event. It's just the way you're responding to it.
I remember I was even saying to her, it wasn't even a parking ticket, I think she had another fine, she had to go to the court, and I'm like, you never know, you could end up speaking to some guy or bumping him on the way out that could end up being the man that you marry and be your partner for the rest of your life, but you would never have known that or had that experience had you not had that parking ticket. You just don't know until, looking at things retrospectively, and we don't spend enough time doing that. And again, it goes with success. We're achieving and succeeding in our lives in so many different ways. I mean, there's loads of things where I think about in my life that, where I'm in my job just now, my core job that I do that I take for granted. Like 5-10 years ago, I'd never thought I'd have been in this position. I thought, oh my God, that's so out of reach. Whereas just now, I've got a lot of flexibility. I'm on a decent wage, and I'm in a position that I thought I wanted. But then sometimes you get what you want and you don't realise it. And you move on and you don't appreciate it because it's happened, it's ticked, you've already moved on to something else. And this is where I think it's important about, even when you're talking about that delayed gratification of wanting to evolve and become better, even when you become better at something or having a new target to work for, I think in human nature that's ingrained, but we do need to invest more time in actually looking at the present and being grateful and actually building up a success vibration in terms of what we've actually achieved, because we're doing and achieving things all the time. We're just not realising it because mentally we're always moving somewhere else. And I think that, again, it's that balance, even like since joining RFA, and I think because, all areas of your life are all interconnected is because it's you at the end of the day, and your thinking and all that will trickle through. And I remember even just looking at when we had that event in January and where I had some of my goals listed out this year, I'm always of that opinion you should always have goals now that you're not being too rigid on a day or working towards them. And I'm still trying to get this balance because, I think you should be reverse engineering, having that idea of where you're at, but they'll always evolve, and they'll always change to some degree. Like I had off the back of this photo shoot doing a half marathon, and I'm like, I don't even know why I've had that down there because I do have no interest in running. Even when I've been doing running, I did it for a social in my running crew, but I just not interested. I'm always in injuries as well. And I thought, what is something that I would actually really enjoy doing? And I think that going back to that question, I was, what would you love? And I think, I would really like to build more muscle. I would really like to do calisthenics when I did that workshop the other month. And I thought, maybe I've got some hidden talents here that I could tap into, that were quite impressive that I enjoyed. But yeah, I think do what you love and find that balance between, having one eye on the horizon, but then also appreciating where you're at just now. Definitely.
100%. You touched on a really important thing there about doing things that you enjoy, and that's one of our 7 success foundations is fun and excitement, because there is no point in doing anything that you do if you're not enjoying it or you're not actually feeling excited about doing it.
Yeah.
And I think so many people will sleepwalk through things and just do it because it's the kind of way that they've been told that it's the narrative.
Sleepwalk through life.
Yeah, yeah, they do. They don't actually do things for fun, and it's something that we all encourage everyone in the programme to do, is like make sure you've got something factored in during your week that's fun. And for yourself, I know that you love going out and eating out and socialising. Like that's a core part of your week because it's fun, you enjoy it, and it helps you obviously live in line with your values as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, you know, being open to having new experiences is quite a fun thing. You know, this is quite fun, you know, coming doing something different. I mean, as much as we're just sitting here talking again, it's still something different. And that's something that I value. I think generally we've all got, you should lean into the things that bring you enjoyment, because that's really probably where your core purpose. I know maybe people don't necessarily believe that you're put on earth with a certain purpose. And to be honest, no one gets out alive anyway. So, I mean, but you may as well just do the thing that you enjoy. So, and I think, maybe some people have got that opinion that if you do the thing that you enjoy, then it'll become less enjoyable. And then you've got other people that have got that opinion, well, if you do the thing that you love, then you'll never work a day in your life. And I genuinely believe that, look at the things, and I was at this place last year, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing in my life. You know, I'm in a corporate job, working myself up a ladder, then realising it's up against the wrong wall. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? You know, and I thought, okay, what do I enjoy? You know, where am I at? And I was going to say that a moment ago, before I went on a tangent, that when I was looking at my goals and things, one of them was like start working in interior design. I had my own business. And I didn't have that confidence in myself to do that until last year. I was, as I said, run up to last year, I was doing a lot of things in deal trading and property and that. But then again, I thought, God, I've just created another job for myself that I don't actually enjoy, you know, and you kind of just follow a rule book or a kind of blueprint that somebody else has laid out for you. But you need to go back to yourself and get true with. Again, this is where I don't think a lot of people spend enough time to understand what they enjoy and what they're doing, you know, where their values are. And I think RFA has really helped me understand what I enjoy, and also just being opened up opportunities and seeing what other people are doing. It's given me confidence and adopt different ways of being and behaving that have allowed me to then start my own business. I had my target to do in August time, you know, I should be working in design, whereas me, I set up a business with my business partner, we're already doing projects, and I'm like, wow, you know, anything that man can conceive in your mind, and again, it goes back to initial thought, you can hold it in your hand. You know, we're doing things, and I think we seem to think that happens to other people and, you know, what they want, but then so many people don't really ask themselves, what do they want to get out of their life? You know, we just seem to think that, you know, we need to get up, go to job, eat, you know, work and sleep and repeat. And I'm thinking, that's an existence. Is it a life? No. I mean, it goes back to what I said. A lot of people are already, you know, may as well just be not here. If that's, you know, the way that you're kind of going through your life, because, and I think part of me and one of my core things I've understood is I enjoy, you know, working and finding it from other people, and I really want to propel other people to kind of find what their purpose is and help them achieve their goals, because, you know, that's a win-win for me. I can vicariously help other wider people are doing what they feel more aligned to. And it was funny, even like last year when Christian was talking about wanting to do his own retreat, and I'm like, why is he saying that? I want to do my own retreat. And then, so obviously doing that's been a great experience, and I want to do body and mind retreats where I can kind of help people adopt a lot of the strategies which I've adopted, you know, in my day-to-day life that have helped me achieve some of my goals, you know, in terms of where I'm in my physical transformation, in terms of where I'm in terms of getting my business up and running. And yeah, I've got visions on I do visualizations every day. I've got a statement that I read, you know, in terms of my future state. And I think it's generally about taking yourself there mentally as if it's already happened. Just like professional athletes have coaches that, you know, have them envisage having completed a marathon. You know, they don't have them imagine in their minds that they've failed the marathon or that they're struggling through it. They take them to the end state, because if you can have clarity on your goal and where you want to be, your mind can get you there. As soon as you've got that clarity and that focus, you need to have certainty. And I think that's why so many of us don't achieve our goals, is because we don't have any. We're not clear on where we want to be. And again, being kind to yourself, you know, it can evolve, but I know where I want to be. I'm not being prescriptive on the time when it happens. I'll let my subconscious do that. I just need to kind of reaffirm this to myself day on day. You know, I need to visualize it in my mind. I need to feel the sensations of the sun, see the money in my bank account, but then at the same token, know that it's not necessarily going to be the thing that makes me happy. I need to take myself there so that I can manifest the life that I want and the different goals which have been happening for me. But I also need to appreciate the moment here and now, because otherwise, even when I get there, I'll still be unsatisfied and I'll be looking at the next thing.
Yeah. You need to be the person rather than have that as an aspiration. Like, you need to be that person now. You need to just start acting like them. Yeah. It's almost like fake it till you make it, but in a way, but rather than faking it, just
fake it until you become it.
Just be that person, do what that person would do, the person that you want to be. And
yeah, it's a becoming process, evolving and, you know, being better. Everything's a becoming process. It's not
constant evolution.
Yep.
nothing's set in stone as well. Like, because even you could have that goal, say it's in a year's time, like you could have that goal of becoming that person in a year's time, but something might happen that takes you on a different path, and then you end up becoming someone else. Not that that's a bad thing or a good or a bad or good thing. Like, it might be an excellent thing because you might go off in a totally different direction than what you expected, but it's about constantly evolving and constantly being the person that you want to be.
Definitely. And I think that's where it's being kind to yourself and just knowing that, you know, you're being less rigid with yourself and things will evolve. Definitely. I think that's one of my favourite words, you know, that I've acquired this year, is that idea of abundance, an abundance mindset, but also that idea of evolvement. So that's why I've always had I've had that in my mind just now, that idea of having a body and mind retreat that can run abroad in the sun, bring people together, cut off from technology, but actually do the inner work, not just to have like a nice wee time away, you know, which is all good, but actually do the inner work and actually evolve and do the strategies that you need to incorporate in your everyday life that will help you achieve and manifest your goals, whatever they may be. And then also it kind of leads itself to allowing me to have a lifestyle that I would want as well, but also do something that I feel more aligned with. And that might change. I mean, this is where I'm at just now. Same with having that interior design business, that's where I'm at and what I'm feeling just now. Having my own service accommodation portfolio, those sort of things are in my mind. I'm doing a lot of work just now that I think, with anything, you know, sometimes we don't see the results pay off right away. We need to, it's almost like we understand in a kind of physical world that you plant a seed in that and that you're not going to see it all of a sudden within a day sprout up into a tree. You know, you need to curate it, you need to water it, you need to tend it. And it's the same with an idea or a thought. You need to plant it, you need to do that daily work on it to allow it to really permeate into your subconscious and become, as I said, you know, this is what really formulates our beliefs and our values. It's habitual thinking. When you think about something, you stack up the evidence, you know, ideas will come to you because you're thinking about it. So naturally, you know, opportunities will present themselves and people and that will come into your life and in line with that energy. I think a lot of things is that I study, which is something that I'm quite passionate and imparting about, is, you know, like that whole idea of mind power, and going back to like that idea that nothing in life is by chance. You know, we seem to think that life and, you know, there's just good breaks and bad breaks, you know, whereas I'm more of the opinion that, you know, you attract everything into your life, good and bad, or however you want to see it, neutral, whatever label you want to give to it, but you attract the people and the circumstances in your life based on your vibration. So if you want to have good things happen to you, like I can think of so many things that I've manifested in my life by just actually putting a focus on them and making sure that, and it is literally an exercise where I'll take and sit with a timer and I'll go into myself and I'll contemplate it on a day-to-day basis. Like just now, I've got certain limitations mentally in my mind that I've had from beliefs or faulty beliefs over my lifespan around relationships, around finances, and I'm having to reprogram myself. So every day I'll go into myself, and I said throughout April, May and June, I'll spend 5 minutes a day on each of those beliefs, and I'll actually do affirmations, you know, or a affirmation on each of them, or I'll do a contemplation exercise, you know, and probe at it, because I'm wanting to, if you've got things or beliefs in your within you that are faulty or that are not empowering you or taking you where you need to be, they're faulty, and you need to address them, because I've only got my experience of Ross's world and my lifetime and what I've experienced to give that has kind of coloured my view of reality. Your lens in which you look through your reality will be completely different to mine, but it's all reality, and it's all doable, it's all feasible. We're just you know, jaded by a certain view. And I think just tapping into other people's consciousness and their experiences is a really useful thing to do, and just reprogramming things that are not really empowering you to ones that are more empowering.
You were saying there about a contemplation exercise. What would that look like?
So I do a lot of things. So this is you'll get an insight into my wacky brain, how I work. So I do one thing that I really enjoy just now, which is linked to, I like I do a bit of quantum mentoring. So that's one exercise that I do, which is so again, you kind of, a lot of people understand like your gut, your sixth sense, you know, your intuition. I'm of the opinion and I believe that, you know, we're all tapped into everything. We're all part of the, we've all got the ability to get the answers to anything that we know. It's like what Oprah says, when you don't know what to do with something, don't go looking to everyone for the answers, just sit still and look within. And again, I think this is where a lot of us struggle, because we can't, get past the noise of what's going on in our own thoughts. But I genuinely believe that I'll wake up every day every second day, and I'll usually do a bit of quantum mentoring where I'll speak to myself in the past. So 5 minutes, 2 of those minutes, 2.5 minutes, I'll speak to myself in the past through difficult circumstances that I've been in. Even like today when I was talking to you about coming here and getting delayed to go on a different road, when I was in a period a couple of years ago where I was in a car accident, and in my life I just felt had so much debt, I'd lost a car, I was like, that was a bad time. But I'll sometimes, as part of that exercise, I'll speak to myself in that moment. And I'll tell myself, oh, that's going to be okay. This is going to happen to you. Like, even just where I am just now in my job, I'll speak to myself like a couple of years ago and think, I know you don't think this is possible, and, you're really struggling with X, Y, and Z, but this is where you're at just now. So just be okay. I'm sending you back courage, love, kindness. Or even where I'm in, my own flat and things. Again, a couple of years ago, didn't think the space that I've created was something that was unachievable. We've always got in our mind limitations as to what's achievable. And it goes back to what I said, we're always constantly achieving things, we just forget. We forget. You need to remind yourself. And the reason I have that kind of like inner dialogue with myself is because if I know just now I've got myself in the past, I know my future self will have me now in the present. So I'm almost like speaking to my own self, or my intuition, or my gut, whatever you want to say. But I do that as a quantum mentoring exercise, because scientists kind of believe that the present, past, and future are running in parallel right now. And in terms of a contemplation exercise, it's almost like just, again, going into your inner thoughts, like taking a statement, a law, or whatever it is, and actually pondering on it, probing it, like writing down questions. Like, if I think I'm going to be tremendously financially successful, when are you going to be financially successful? How are you going to do it? How are you feeling? What are the things you're doing? What experiences are you going through? And just create that image in your mind visually, because if you can visualize something in your mind, it's like Walt Disney, when he was passed away before he could even see Disneyland, and that brought up, whereas I think someone turned to his wife and said, oh, I wish Walt was able to see this. And his wife, turned and said, he did see it. That's why it's a reality. He's seen it in his mind. For anything to happen, people call them the great stories, or these, like Jim Carrey's a famous example about, was it 1 million, 10 million?
Yeah, he said he was going to make X amount of money before he was whatever age, and he was doubted, and he was like, don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to make this amount of money, and he done it. It
was the Dumb and Dumber movie. They got a check for like 10 million quid and that. So I think it goes back to what you say. You need to have clarity on what you want. Tony Robbins and others are very clear on that as well. If you say you want to lose some weight and you're very ambiguous about it, and you lose a pound, you got what you asked for. Whereas it's been clear on the goal. You don't need to necessarily know the way in which you're going to get there. The destination, the how, will always change. But just if you can be clear on the goal itself, then that's the starting point. So a lot of people just don't achieve their goals, as I said, because they don't know what they are, and we kind of work within the realms of our own limitations and what we think you're able to achieve in your lifetime. A lot of things I've been able to achieve over the last 12 months, I never thought I would be able to achieve. And I've already, and I take them for granted because I forget about them and I move on. And this is why I think it's important to kind of acknowledge where you've been and what you've appreciated or what you thought was out of reach, because if you've been able to do that up until now, but a lot of things in your life, whether it's people in my life that I need to remind that, by the way, a year or two ago you were wanting a family and you struggled to get it, you've got kids and all that now, and you're already mourning just now about something else that you can't get, but you just need to remind yourself that, or whatever it might be, you couldn't get that household, or you couldn't clear that debt, you couldn't get that partner, whatever it is, you just need to look for examples within yourself and your own life to kind of counteract that faulty belief system, and what's achievable.
Amazing. I love that. To finish things off, if someone's watching this and they're maybe on the fence about getting a coach or even potentially joining Ready for Anything, what would you say to them?
I would say go with your gut and listen to your intuition, and look within, because I genuinely think, some things will present themselves and they might not be for you. I think it's about being honest, and I think for me, Ready for Anything is really kind of gave me more than what I wanted. It's probably given me the opposite of what I wanted, in one sense, and not the opposite, but really it gave me...
Maybe not what you were expecting.
It's not, because I think the thing that I appreciate more from it is not the thing that I thought I wanted from it. you know, because ultimately I talk about, I came in wanting just a physical transformation, something in the gym, you know, and help me physically. Whereas I've got so much more than that I appreciate probably, or rank higher in terms of using you as my mini therapist, you know, every day, you know, in terms of, okay, getting different perspective, you know, to help me grow in different areas, you know, help me get involved with a community with people which I've been able to get in, you know, form new relationships and get new experiences from. So I do think you do offer something quite different from a lot of other programs in terms of coaches that is very unique and very bespoke. And I think the fact that I genuinely feel like you care and don't see people as numbers, you know, and take an interest, and you're always probing to actually want people to open up and be more, so you can help them achieve goals in all areas of their life. And I think that's what makes you really unique as a program. And some people are more receptive to that than others, and it just depends on where they're at in their life and if they're ready to open up. Because I certainly think, you know, it's not more, you know, you just find that you're developing relationships and friendships that, you know, I just can't really kind of envisage my life just now without you.
Thanks very much. That was really nice. Yeah. There's not really much else I can add to that. I think we'll finish up on that note, but Ross, that was brilliant. Thanks very much for coming on today and giving us your insights and your wisdom that you've learned over the past kind of, was it 12 to 18 months? You're saying that you've really dived into your own development. And
yep.
Really appreciate you coming on here today and taking the time to do so.
No, it's been great. Thank you very much for having me.
First podcast in the bag.
Yep.
That's you. But yeah, if you enjoyed this, then please like and subscribe, and you can follow us. We'll leave our Instagram handles in the description as well. But if you want to follow Ross and see what he's up to as well, where can the listeners find you?
God, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's usually Ross Wilson or Ross W732 or something like that.
We'll link it down below so you can all see it. But thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Client Hot Seat with Ross Wilson. We'll catch you all in the next episode.